I know the real reason behind the closing of the old yellow gas station. If you're local, I'm sure you've noticed the old yellow gas station has been closed for a long while. They say it was because of low revenue and vandalism, but that's a lie. I was there the last night it was open. I know what happened. I know why the doors are chained shut. If you have driven the Mountain Loop Highway, then without a doubt you've seen the run-down little station on the corner of 20 and 530. And if you stopped by on a weekday between 5 o'clock and midnight, you would have been served by either myself or Iris. I was 16 at the time. Technically I couldn't work the hours that I was, but the owners were pretty relaxed when it came to certain things. Iris was 2 years older, and in my teenage opinion simply beautiful. She stood equal to my 5'8", had long dark brown hair that she kept in a ponytail while working, and the most mesmerizing blue eyes imaginable. It was the winter season. The pass over the mountain was closed due to snow. This meant we went from being nearly overrun by customers to seeing 1 or 2 people an hour. The later hours were even slower. Sometimes we would go the entire shift only getting a single customer. During these times I would wander around bored out of my mind or watch movies that I had downloaded at home. There was no cell service or Wi-Fi, so scrolling social media wasn't an option. Iris preferred to lean back in her chair behind the register and read books. I would try and make conversation occasionally, but it would always die quickly. The night of the incident was like all the rest. The sun had set depressingly early. We hadn't seen a soul in hours. I pulled my phone out of my pocket out of habit. Realizing there still wasn't any service, I put it away. "What time is it?" I nearly jumped at the sound of her voice. "What?" I asked in confusion. She took her feet off the register and placed her book on it instead. Raising an eyebrow, she repeated, "What time is it?" "Oh, it's..." I had to pull my phone out again. "It's 9:45. She sighed. "We still got another 2 hours until closing." I just nodded dumbly. An awkward silence hung in the air for a minute. Iris picked up her book and continued reading. Feeling the moment slipping away, I blurted out, "Hey, you want to do something?" "Like what?" she asked without looking up from her book. "I don't know, something to help pass the time." "As in?" I just shrugged. She sighed and put her book down. "Listen, Clyde, we're paid to keep an eye on things and help people buy stuff. Not to goof off or socialize." Her rebuke stung a bit, and it must have shown somewhat because she quickly followed with, "Tell you what, go take the trash out and I'll check once again if the bathrooms are clean. Then we can inventory the beer cave together." I hated taking out the trash, but if it meant we could do something together afterwards, it was worth it. Carrying the large black bag over my shoulder, I used my free hand to fumble with the bolt on the rear door. The door knob never properly latched, so the owners had installed a large gate-style locking bolt. It usually required 2 hands, one to pull the door closer and the other to rotate, then slide the bolt back. Finally working it free, I pushed the heavy metal door open. In front of me stretched a gravel driveway that led to the highway. At the end of the driveway was a worn green dumpster. Iris hated taking the trash out for the same reason I did. At night there was a single light above the door. The rest of the walk was in near blackness. One night I had stupidly bragged about how I didn't mind taking the trash out, how I kind of liked the fresh air. From then on, Iris had let me take it out every night. Willing myself forward, I walked out into the all-absorbing darkness. I felt eyes on me. Despite knowing it was just my imagination, I couldn't hold back a shiver. I lifted the dumpster lid and swung the bag inside. The lid slammed shut, echoing through the night. I almost didn't notice the rustling bushes just off the path. I froze. The sound grew closer. I nearly screamed as a figure stood from the blackberry bushes, leaves and twigs sticking out of their hair and clothes. They took a step closer. I let out the breath I was holding. I knew that face. "Geez, Iris, you nearly scared me to death. Why are you in the bushes?" She stared at me without blinking. Her eyes were completely void of emotion. She slowly opened her mouth. "To death," she whispered in a voice that was not her own. Instinctively I took a step back. She matched it with a step forward. "Iris?" She took another step closer. Iris? She whispered, despite her mouth being open too wide to be whispering anything. Fear coursed through my veins. Her enunciation was wrong. But even worse, it wasn't her voice, it was mine. My legs were beginning to shake. There was something wrong with her. Not only was it the way she sounded that freaked me out, but she looked incorrect. The color of her hair and skin was just a little off, her dimensions weren't quite right. It hadn't been enough to notice at first, but the more I looked, the more off she felt. She spoke again, drawing closer with each word. Iris, to death, Iris, why to death, Iris? The words were flat and emotionless. Each time she spoke, she sounded more and more like me. A car happened to drive down the highway. Her right eye jerked to the side, watching it pass as her left stayed focused on me. I snapped. I turned tail and sprinted for the building. Bursting through the back door, I slammed it shut behind myself and barred it. I slid to the floor with my back planted firmly against the door. I waited for something to happen, but the only sound was my ragged breath. Regaining my composure, I started to doubt what I had just seen. I don't know how she did it, but Iris had pulled one hell of a prank. I started to get pissed off. She had made a total fool of me. I could just imagine her out there doubled over in laughter. She probably even had a camera set up. I stood up ready to throw open the door and give her a piece of my mind when I heard her in the main room. About time you finished what we're doing out there this whole time, she asked. Confused, I stood up. She couldn't see me in the back room. How did she know I was back inside? She spoke again. Are you going to come in or just stand outside? It was then that I heard my voice come from the room she was in. Iris, stand outside, Iris. Are you okay, Clyde? She asked with obvious concern. I heard her walk towards the front door. The voice that sounded like me encouraged her. Come outside, Iris. The inflection was still wrong, but it sounded so much like me. Realizing what was happening, I ran out of the back room. Iris, wait! I yelled. She jumped in surprise. Spinning around, she looked at me in confusion, then back to the empty front door. How did you? She trailed off. There's something outside. I don't know what it is, but there's something out there. She looked quite annoyed with me. Clyde, work isn't the place for pranks, you got me. Now stop goofing off before we get in trouble. I glared right back. Listen, Iris, I'm not doing anything. And unless you were crawling around in the bushes a few minutes ago, there's someone out there messing with both of us. She didn't look entirely convinced, but apologized anyways. Sorry, I just assumed since it sounded and looked like you that you were behind it. You saw it?